make it there and can make it back.
Salutations and shit, folks. Welcome back to your favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit, where I, your host, D. Carey, have an experiential conversation about the nuanced ways that travel intersects with regular life. And if you are just joining us this week, October happens to be the Travel and Shit anniversary month. So this month, I am having my incredible listeners join me in on the celebration because there is no podcast without you guys. Other than that, it would just be an audio diary. And I would be sitting and talking to myself. And I am so happy and honored to have today's guest because I don't know that she knows, but she has been such a very important motivating factor in this journey for me. Her comments on the YouTubes, her answering my Spotify poll that they have up there. I really don't know if you know how much that absolutely means the world to me. It's just the little ways that you just share such kind words on my content that I really, truly do appreciate. And I wanted to publicly thank you because you do make all of your comments public. And one thing that I personally struggle with is taking my time with my words sometimes, but then sometimes I never loop back to actually do it because I will be in the moment and feel so much, but I have a hard time sometimes. As much as I run my mouth, I happen to have a hard time sometimes taking what is in my head and on my heart and putting it into words. And I don't know that I've always followed up with all the comments. So I wanted to tell you thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It means so much to me. And it's kind of like a reminder. You know, they say, tell you check on your loved ones and tell you to reach out to your strong friend and all that kind of shit. While that is important also, sometimes all it is like a really small word to someone that you don't even know in person. Like you don't know in real life, as people would say, as if the internet hasn't now become a ubiquitous part of actual real life. But thank you for your kind words. And if you ever have the opportunity, folks, to just say something nice to people, say something nice. I happen to do that in real life, so it's very nice to see it reciprocated in this digital life. So, Miss Boyd, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate you.
You're so deserving.
And thank you. And so I think that's a perfect segue for you to introduce yourself. So if you're watching on the YouTubes, you guys can see that I have a beautiful face here with me. So my beautiful face, Mrs. Boyd, please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi, my name is Melissa Blackson Boyd, and I'm from Philadelphia. And I've been listening for about 1.5 years but it's now my favorite travel podcast. I just enjoy how real and how much, D connects travel to just your everyday life and just makes it adventurous. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to several travel podcasts, and yours is my favorite. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a shit ton of a lot. So this month, there are no hard topics. There are no structured outlines. It's just a kick it about travel. Okay. And in our email exchanges, you had mentioned one of the things that, you might want to discuss this episode was regrets.
Yes.
And I think that is a very fitting place to start because I absolutely agree and share in that sentiment. I let so many restricting beliefs keep me from traveling as a younger person. And a lot of it was, I don't have anybody to go with. I don't have a man. So, that whole vacation is just not going to happen.
Exactly.
A lot of my really close friends ended up having kids early. Well, not early, like we weren't like 15-year-olds.
Right.
But like my early 20s, my best friends either moved out of state, were married. A lot of them got married very early or had kids. So it was kind of like, okay, girls trip, maybe not. Going to happen the way that I saw it, right? Because all I would really see of travel was kids going on spring break in Miami or going to Myrtle Beach or going to South Beach or, like the Cancun trip where the seniors, friend group kind of goes and does their little thing. So I didn't see what I didn't have for myself what I saw and what I thought travel was. So for me, because I couldn't connect those dots, I just didn't go.
Exactly.
And at some point, I was 30
Mhm.
and I finally went. And that
Right.
was my first solo trip. Prior to that, I'd only gone to like different states. Like I go see my
Right.
cousin in Virginia, or I was going to New Orleans to see my homegirl for Mardi Gras.
Mhm.
I would go to. Did I go to Atlanta? I mean, I've been to Atlanta plenty of times, but I'm
Right.
trying to think if that was part of like my young bitch travel journey.
Mhm.
I feel like Atlanta was more familial because that's really all I got in Atlanta.
Right.
But long and the short, I do have regrets about not like hard regrets,
Mhm.
like oh my
Right.
god,
Right.
if I could do it again, I would do it different. But
Right.
it's kind of like
Right.
all right, I see how I
Mhm.
got in my own way.
Yes.
Um, what was your experience with, coming into your travel experience or coming into what you now currently hold as your travel beliefs?
That's so funny. What you said, you started traveling. You did your first solo trip. You said in your 30s. So I did my
Mhm.
first solo trip in my 50s.
Wow.
So I can relate so much. It just fascinates me how much I can relate to a lot of what you say, even though there's a difference in age between us, but
Hmm.
we share a lot of the same travel philosophies. So I was in that same place. I was single mom, had three daughters. They're adults now, but raising them, I didn't think I had enough money to travel. I didn't think, with school, it was always thinking about their schedules or where I was going to do it. Jobs, trying to take off time. Sometimes in the summer I would have to work instead of being able to just have that free time to go on vacation and things like that. So I just put it off. I just kept putting it off. And the other part you said about like the vacation, and I wasn't in a relationship. And so it was, well, I'll wait. And one day when I have,
One day.
one day when I have a man, me and my man are going to go here, we're going to go there and do this. But then, I looked up one day and said, what if that never happens? Like, what if that never happens? So I remember it was right after my 50th birthday. And me and my best friend, we've been friends since we were 12. So we've been friends for over 40 years. And we had never gone on vacation together. So
Mm.
here we were, I think she was getting ready to celebrate her 50th birthday. And I think we both were. I was getting ready to celebrate mine. I'm not sure about the timing, but it was like, let's go somewhere. And we planned a whole trip to Niagara Falls.
Oh,
And
nice.
it was so nice and on the Canada side.
Hmm.
So if anybody knows me, they know I like to travel. It's never simple. It's never just a flight or a drive to one destination and just stay there. So I planned it out where we flew into Buffalo from Philadelphia, and then we took a taxi from Buffalo into Niagara Falls over across the border. And then once we got there, of course we stayed, like in the hotel where you can see the Falls View Hotel,
Oh, nice.
and just did it up, and it was just really nice. And we stayed for about a week. And as I was doing research, one thing I like to do when I travel, I, I'm a history buff, and like you, I love museums. I love
Hmm.
tours and finding out things that unexpected things about the destination where I'm traveling. So I was able to, through a newspaper article, find out about a woman that did Black history tours
Mm.
in Niagara Falls. And a lot of people don't think about that. I didn't think about it.
No.
There's such a huge Black history story in terms of, like slaves who were escaping slavery in America. Once it got to the point where America, like basically none of America, even North, wasn't safe, they would go into Canada and
Hmm.
they would swim across Lake Erie, which when you see it, it's like, I don't even know how anybody thought about swimming across this lake because it's a big lake and it's a big current. It's a strong current. So I don't even know how they made it. But she just took us all around and showed us like this whole area that had been established by Black people, like really in the 1800s. And they had their
Mm.
neighborhood. There's like, they call it the colored cemetery, but it's
Hmm.
just like now we may take it as like a derogatory term, but for them, it was like their own land, their own
Right.
base, their own cemetery where they got to, remember and bury their own. So they didn't have to wait for somebody else to do it. So,
Right.
and she just took us all around Niagara Falls, and we just got to see the Black experience and the
Mm.
history and even the current Black experience in Niagara Falls. And it was amazing. So that's kind of how it started. That wasn't a solo tour, it was just me and my friend. But after that, it was like just the two of us. So going down to one wasn't hard. And I remember my first solo trip actually started out as a group trip. So my family likes to travel for sports. That's one of the things,
Okay.
like I heard you talk about traveling for music, and I like that too. But my family travels for sports. So I'm Philadelphia. I'm a big Eagles fan. And so we traveled to Detroit to go see the
Okay.
Eagles. And it was really cool. And we always go in a couple days early so we can kind of see the city where they're playing. Then we go to the big game. And it's cool because you get to have like that whole excitement of the sports event and everybody's charged in the city and you have like those friendly rivalries that's going on and stuff like that. So we were doing like almost every year. But this year I found out some kind of way that how close Chicago is to Detroit. So I just called the airline and said, how much would it cost instead of going back with them to Philadelphia if I divert my flight and go to Chicago for a couple of days? And that was back in like 2016, and it was like $12. It was a
Oh,
$12 difference. That was it. So I was like,
I
definitely.
got
So,
$12. Okay.
so I just changed my flight, went to Chicago, and I just hung out in Chicago for 2 days, I believe, by myself. And that was my first real solo trip where I was just by myself. And I loved it.
I was gonna say, how did that feel?
I loved it. I hear people talk about like not feeling safe and things like that. It
Hmm.
comes up a lot when you travel solo, but at no time, I did a little bit of research, not much, but just enough to know kind of like what area I wanted to stay in. I found a
Right.
hotel with reviews. Um, and I kind of just stayed in the more touristy part of
Hmm.
Chicago. I stayed down, no, I think it's like the Navy Yard, I think it's called,
Okay.
the naval base. No, it's not a naval base, but it's like, it's a tourist attraction where it's like a big Ferris wheel and it's kind of by the pier.
Okay.
It's by the pier,
Okay.
the Navy Pier. And just did things. I scheduled a foot tour. Um,
Hmm.
where we just walked around and did like a historic tour to kind of
I love
familiarize
those.
myself with Chicago. I love them too. And I always look for the free ones because they're always like some where you can go for free and then you can kind of pay as you
Yeah.
can or pay as you will. And I find them to be very, very interesting. If I can find a black owned one, that's my goal. But I'll learn from anybody. So that's what I
Right.
did. And I stayed. I scheduled myself a foot massage right after my 3 hour tour and
Nice.
just made a whole 2 days by myself. And then I eventually flew back home to Philly.
I think that that's one of the things that I've mentioned plenty of times, that solo travel doesn't have to be scary, right? Like, I
Mhm.
understand the sentiment of it being
Right.
scary because at one
Right.
point I didn't think I could go anywhere by myself.
Exactly.
But when I realized, like, girl, you live by yourself now.
Exactly.
Like, what don't you do by yourself? It's been
Exactly.
you and this dog for years. When you
Right.
leave the house, this little thing ain't with
Right.
you. Like, it's
Right.
just
It's
you
you.
in
Right.
these streets, doing
Right.
your grocery shopping, going to the
Exactly.
doctor's office, getting on the train, getting off the
Right.
train, going here, going there, going to this movie theater, going to get my
Mhm.
nails done, going to get my hair done, whatever it was, I was doing it by myself. And then I
Exactly.
realized it's the same thing
It's the
someplace
same thing.
else.
Just in a
It
different,
doesn't have to be.
but
That's it. It's just somebody else's neighborhood. And it's like I'm in somebody else's neighborhood the majority of the time I am out of my house.
right.
So it doesn't have to be this grandiose,
Mm-mm.
long and drawn out elaborate plan
Right.
that you have to piece together and overthink, right?
Right.
I like the way you already had a trip planned. You said,
Hmm.
let me have a good time with the family.
Right. Right.
And then I could just step to the side and do
Exactly.
something myself. Continue
Uh-huh.
your trip. It
Right.
makes it, I think, a little bit more palatable for people,
Mhm.
especially in terms of that familial worry. Like when that cousin is in your ear, like, girl, you gonna go where? Where you gonna
Exactly.
stay? Who you gonna be with? Who all know you there? It's like,
Mhm.
you were just 2 hours away or you
Right.
were a city right over. You
That's it.
saw what it was. You got
Hmm.
the energy of the area. It's the
Right.
same thing because,
Same
like,
thing.
it's just going to be me by myself. If I told you I was going to go outside and get coffee and I was going to bring something back, you'd be all right with me
No
going by
problem.
myself, right?
Right. Right.
So it's
Right.
like that same energy applies.
Right.
How do you think you like for so growing up, what was your experience of travel? Did you travel when you were younger, and what did that, if it did at all, how did it influence the way you felt coming into it as an adult?
Yeah. So, when I was younger, the big mode of travel was either car or bus. You always, you got the bus trips, or you went on a road trip, and it usually was like a packed car, whole family, extended family going to a relative's house or something like that. Maybe a school trip, something like that. But
Yeah.
it was pretty limited. But I do remember taking my first flight when I was about 9 years old, and we were going to Disney World. And not to tell my age or anything, but that was like Disney World had just opened. So that's how
Okay.
it was going. But so that was a big deal. And we used to get dressed up. We used to get on a plane. You used to wear your little suit, your little socks, your
With the
Easter
little frills.
frills. And so we all, would dress up, get on this plane, and go
I
down to
used
Disney
to love the
World.
gloves. Every
Oh,
Easter, I
wow.
wanted me a pair of
There
gloves.
we
I
go.
looked
Yes.
forward to them little white gloves. Ooh,
Yes.
I remember
You
that.
like the
My grandma
gloves,
used to
you get
always
the
get me some
hat,
cute
that
ones.
little hat.
Yep.
So,
The little bow.
that's what it was. So on the plane, that's what we did. So as a family, we would go down there. And that was kind of my extent of flying, was to go. We pretty much did, for some reason, my mom loved Disney World, and she just fell in love with Florida. So that became our go-to vacation spot. So whenever we flew somewhere, that was it. Otherwise, we would do like car trips or bus trips,
Okay.
something like that. And then when I got into my 20s on my own, we went to a cousin. Me and my cousin went to the Bahamas. So that was like my
Okay.
first grown trip. And so I went to the Bahamas with her, and it was like her boyfriend, my boyfriend, and we were hanging out in the Bahamas. She had a friend, a coworker, somebody who had like a timeshare or something, and they just had a
Oh, nice.
timeshare. So it was nice. It was inexpensive, and we stayed for about a week. So that was pretty cool, kind of just doing it on your own.
Hmm.
And then after that, it's kind of like a blur because I got married, I had kids, and I don't know, it just stopped. It just seemed like as I go back and look, we did a lot of local stuff, but in terms of like getting on a plane, I don't know if it was because just the thought of doing that with, like three kids by myself, maybe that was overwhelming. I don't know, but I didn't travel. So, same cousin, and thank you to my cousin because she's always looking out for me. She encouraged me to come on here today, and she was like, "Just go talk."
Hi, guys.
And we she gave me a trip. She gave my daughter a trip for high school graduation. My oldest daughter, a cruise. And I'm like, that's so nice. You're gonna take my daughter on a cruise. She said, no, all y'all coming. So her and other family members got together to make sure that we had no excuse. I had no excuse. We were
That's
going
beautiful.
on the family
That
vacation,
is so beautiful.
and we went cruise out of New York and
Hmm.
cruise to, I think, like it was like Nassau and Turks and Caicos. And after that, it was done. It was like I got bit by, and
Yeah.
my children. It was just like I'm gonna find somewhere to go. I'm gonna find some plane ride, and that's when plane travel was kind of still affordable.
Hmm.
So it was probably maybe about, I think that was 2014.
Okay.
2015 was, so it had been a gap, and we hadn't traveled. But after that, it was like every year. Every year, I was just perusing the internet and going on the travel pages and just trying to find some place to go. I took I took about three more cruises. I went to Alaska. We took a Mediterranean cruise, and I got a chance to do some of the really big ones that a lot of people wait a lifetime to do. It just so happened because I was traveling with different people that wanted to go to these different places. I got to go to um, like trips that were kind of like bucket list trips for other people.
Yeah.
It became like, oh, well, you only been on four cruises, but you've been on all the big cruises that everybody kind of waits
Right.
their whole life to go on. And then just flying into different places. We took a family trip, And when we travel as a family, I say family, it's like 20 of us going to these places. So it's like, and I
That ain't
became,
for the faint of heart.
no, it's not. And I'm
Baby.
kind of the planner for that family because I was always going over and above trying to do something different.
You are a
So,
saint.
for instance, when we went to the Mediterranean cruise, I didn't plan that trip. It was planned by someone else, and then I got the opportunity to go and take my 3 daughters. So that was amazing. And I had teenage girls, and I knew they weren't going to want to do the museum thing.
Okay.
So I just went online and tried to find some fun things. So we were able to go, me and other, not just the 4 of us, but the whole family. We rented scooters and did like the Vespa scooters through Italy. We
I'm
did
terrified of those.
kayaking. I am
Absolutely
too.
terrified.
When I look at the pictures, I'm like, who is this person? Meme that says, when you're home, you barely want to, do anything adventurous. You won't even get on a bike in your own neighborhood. But when you go
Right.
on vacation, you're like riding
Let me
skate.
rent a plane. Let me fly out there.
And so we were on the Vespa scooter all through these mountains. They had us on some little roads traveling through Tuscany. It was beautiful, but I was scared to
Oh my
death.
gosh.
But so memorable. And we also did kayaking in France. They just took us out to this little, I don't know, I guess it was like a lake or a sea, or I don't know what it was. We went into the ocean, and we're all in kayaks and just arranged a tour. We did all kinds of Black history tours. Me and my daughter, we learned so much about like the Black experience in Barcelona,
Oh wow.
Black experience in Sicily. Like so many people, there's so much they don't tell us.
Yeah.
So much we don't know. So
You would think you weren't there if you
you
left
weren't
it to what they
exactly.
tell you in school and what they show on TV
Yep.
and all of that.
Until you go. Until you go.
Right.
And when you go, we had a tour guide who was pointing out like a lot of the statues and a lot of the carvings in these ancient buildings. There were Black people carved into these buildings. But
Wow.
if you were just walking past, you wouldn't even notice. That was in Barcelona. So I say all that because after I planned all that adventurous stuff for that trip because of my daughters, they were like, "Oh, we want you to plan all of our all of our adventurous vacations." So
That's the burden of being good at something.
I know. I know. I love it though. I really do. I mean, it does get to be a lot at times, and I've heard like
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you a lot of things. Like, I don't want to book nobody's flight. That's on you. Book your own hotel because everybody has their preferences. But when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the excursions and the trips and things like that, what are we going to do while we're there? I'm good all day
That's
for
your
that.
bag.
I like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
so
And
that's what
it's
I do.
like I think once you find a good balance in terms of traveling with people, who's
Hmm.
good for what?
Yes.
Like with my partner and I'm good for that. I
Hmm.
will handle the experiences
Right.
and he does the food. He
That's
is
it. Good.
absolutely
Yeah.
food in
Yeah.
terms of bars, if we do
Yes.
restaurants, if we do
Yes.
food trucks, if we do our own shopping. He ain't never steer me
Yes.
wrong when
Yes.
it comes to that food and
That's
that
good.
drink. That I
That's
don't even bother. I don't
hmm
even bother. All it is well, what are you in the mood for? That's the only contribution to the food that I have, and that the rest is all him. But when it comes to the activities and shit to
right.
do, he'll defer to
That's
me.
good.
It's not
Right.
like he is absolutely capable of doing
Right.
that. Like
Right.
he is
Right.
contributed. Like okay, well, what about this? I heard this was
Right.
a thing, or what last time I was in this area
Hmm.
we did this. I want to take you to this place or whatever.
Right.
But he's very flexible and laid back with, well, whatever makes
Hmm.
you happy. You want to do whatever. Like we could go to the museum or we could do this and we'll have
Yes.
a good fucking time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what do you think that, well, not that, but what do you think how do you think your experience of travel has
Hmm.
impacted how you may have or may not have
Hmm.
influenced your girls to travel? Like, how did your personal feelings on travel kind of shape how, like you, the
Yes.
the person, the adult, the
Right.
how did your take influence how you wanted to kind of impart that on your children? Because I feel like people generally say, oh, you always want better for your kids. Like I've never heard
Mhm.
anybody say you don't want better for your kids,
Right.
right? But I
Right.
feel like when it comes to something like travel,
Hmm.
without it being an intentional conversation to have,
Yeah.
I feel like it's
Yeah.
not really something that necessarily comes up. And
Mm-mm.
I could absolutely be wrong because I feel like everybody's life experience is different.
Right.
But Is that a thing that you considered? Is that something that you thought about? Is that something that you decided to be intentional about? What did that look like as a parent for you?
Well, exactly. The word is intentional. Like, I don't want them to make the mistake I did and have the regret that I have. I want them to start traveling early. So,
Hmm.
like my oldest daughter, she was 14 and she took a trip to Haiti. It was with like our church, but it was
Wow.
like, get on out of here. And nobody else in the family was going. So she was going with, I mean, there were people that I knew, but they weren't family members. But she wanted to go. She expressed an interest in going. We did some research. We made sure she was going to be with people that were safe and things like that. But she got on the plane she was 13 or 14, and she went to Haiti. She went to Dominican Republic. She started. They have more passport stamps than I do. My kids do, and that was a big part of intentionally making sure they had their passport, making sure their passport stayed up to date, making sure that they knew that nothing was out of reach for them. Being a single mom, and sometimes it's like I know people that I grew up with who really haven't been a lot of places, and it kind of shocks me sometimes because it's just like you don't want to sound like arrogant because it's a privilege. Travel is a privilege. Everybody doesn't get to do it.
Absolutely.
Everybody's not exposed to it. So I really do appreciate that I got that exposure. But I want to make sure my girls understand, and not just my girls, but I do a lot of work with young people on my job. So I make sure they know too. It's like, no, you have to get your passport. You have to be ready because even though you don't have a trip planned, when one comes up, you make sure you have everything so you can say, yes, I'm ready to go. Get
Right.
just a
Let
little.
the opportunity find you.
Exactly, exactly. And so with my girls now, like I said, I have my youngest daughter, she's been to at least 13 or 14 countries, like with
Wow.
different
God
and people.
bless.
Sometimes people are taking their own children and they're
Hmm.
maybe like their child, especially when the kids get to be a teenager, they don't want to be with their parents. But so it's like, oh, can your daughter come with us so that they can hang out and keep my kid company? Sure. And so because she had her passport, because she was ready to go, it was like she got to go to 13 different countries.
Wow.
Over the years, encouraged them to do. My one daughter, she moved to New York. She lives in New York now. So when people were kind of encouraging her to kind of stay close to home, I was like, New York is close to home. I mean, it's really
It's a
close.
lot.
It's
Right.
closer to Philly than a lot of colleges in Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
When I said I was on my
Absolutely.
way to New York, people were like, New York? That's a whole different state. And now she's been there 10 years and she loves it. And
Wow.
she lives in Harlem. So I just want them
Oh,
to
God bless.
know.
Hey, girl.
I want her to know that I want them all to know, and I want really anybody around me to know that
Hmm.
travel is accessible. It's
Yes.
accessible to you. You have to, like you said, prepare yourself for the opportunity. Um, do what's comfortable or maybe like a little bit out of your comfort zone. You don't have to do what I do, but because I'll just get up and go. I'll just announce to my kids, especially now that they're adults, you know, I got remarried, so I'm married. But my husband's even like I'll tell you, for example, uh, the friend that went on the Niagara Falls trip. So I had planned a bunch of road trips for me and my husband after we got married in 2019,
Hmm.
and then 2020 came. So all those road
Ooh.
trips were gone. It was like we had about 5 road trips.
Kaput. Oh, that sucks
When you
ass.
start traveling late, the thing is, I want to catch up. There's so many things I want to
Hmm.
see, so many things I want to do. So I had planned about 5 road trips. And as soon as I was able to start traveling again, I said, okay, we're going to start doing these road trips. So I mentioned the first road trip to him, and that was a civil rights trail road trip.
Wow.
So he was like, in the 2020 climate, he was like, nah, I'm good. So in
Yeah,
2020,
we'll say that one.
he said, I'm good. So I was like, no,
Back
I don't
pocket.
want to. After being locked in the house, it was like, no, I don't want to take for granted that this opportunity will always be there. So he said, ask one of your friends to go. So I went back to my best friend from the Niagara Falls trip and asked her to go. And she said, yeah. And so we went and we flew into Nashville, rented a car, drove through Tennessee with the Memphis, Birmingham, Selma, Montgomery.
Oof.
We went deep. We went all the way. But let me tell you, we came back. It was emotional. It was a
Yeah.
roller coaster of them for emotions, but we came back feeling so empowered and so proud
Wow.
of our people, and what they had endured so that, we could travel. We could
Right.
jump in the car,
Right.
everything. It just made us appreciate our lives so much more for what
Hmm.
they sacrificed, what they did for us. So it wasn't all sad. We did a lot of fun things, but a lot of reflective stuff too. So, I say that, that was just another kind of intentional but spontaneous
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah.
Again, like he didn't want to go, so I went.
That ain't
Um,
gonna stop me. I'ma
that
go,
was-
but
so I
I
want my
want
kids,
you. Let me
yeah,
just see when I get back.
back to my kids. I want them to have the same kind of, don't let anything stop you. If you
Yeah.
want to go, if you want to do it, you can go by yourself. You can go with a small group. You can go with a friend, or you can go with a group. Whatever you want to do, but just be open to different opportunities to travel.
That two parts. So the first part I'll say is that I feel like sometimes we don't even realize how our own
Mhm.
decisions in, I don't want to say bravery, but because I don't want to make it seem like it's, well, sometimes it is that deep, right?
Right,
But
right.
sometimes our own bold
Yes,
choices, I'll say that. Sometimes our old bold choices, when we live in our own light, we give other people permission to see their own
right,
light.
right.
And I know that that was the experience for me and how
Yes.
I started traveling, because
Mhm.
the big part of it for me was seeing my friend, Unicorn and BK. Hey, Missy.
Mhm.
Seeing her, and shout out to Pose Beauty, Miss Anissa. Seeing the two of them, Black women, solo traveling,
Yes.
um, that unlocked so many doors for me, because I
Yes.
saw a lot of myself in
Mhm.
them.
Mhm.
And seeing them in Cambodia, in
Yes.
where did she go? Vietnam, and just
Right.
doing these incredible trips and staying in hostels in other
Right.
countries. And I'm like, hostels? Oh, did I see that in a movie? I don't know if I could do that. And then she's showing me that it's just like, oh, so you
Right.
could have your own room in a hostel?
Uh,
So this hostel looks like a fucking hotel. And it's
Basically,
like
yeah.
you see it, and then you realize, oh, I can do this. And
Yeah.
it's something that I don't want to say the language wasn't there when I was younger,
Mhm.
but the older I got, I realized how much representation matters, even as an
Yes.
adult.
Yes.
Even as an adult, representation mattering doesn't just stay in the world of children. It
Mm-mm.
absolutely affects adults in the ways that they are able to see themselves, and the futures they're able to envision for themselves. Grown
Yes.
me, who lived on their own, was paying their bills, college
Right.
degree, doing my thing, being successful in life. Well, well, I wasn't unsuccessful. I mean, looking back,
Right.
it's just like, all right,
Successful.
that little job was cute, but no, let me run that back. I was successful because
There
I
you
have
go.
lived on my own
Mhm.
since 2000 and what, 4,
Mhm.
maybe. No, that's a lie. When I graduate, 2004, I was still in college. 2008. It was
2000.
October 2008, or it was May in 2008. Yeah, I think it was the May after I graduated.
Okay.
Because I graduated 2007, and then I think I moved out. I started working at that job in October, and then and I never remember dates and times, but this is the only area of my life when I can tell you what year something happened, and I always have
Mhm.
to go back to when I graduated. But I've been doing this since 2008, so yay
Wow.
me. But
Yeah. Great.
that, seeing those women at that bigly age of 30, it was
Right.
kind
Right.
of, maybe I shouldn't be so scared.
Yes.
Maybe it doesn't have to be as, grandiose
Mhm.
and detailed and extravagant as I pictured.
Imagine, right?
And the next question I had was like, oh my God, like, does anybody know any travel agents? And
Mhm.
and Anissa was like, do it yourself.
Just do it.
And I was
Just,
like,
huh? Me?
me? The girl that ain't never been nowhere about to plan a trip? How am I
Mhm.
plan a trip and I've never been on a trip? And she was like, the Google, you're
Yep.
fine. Just
That's
do it. And it
yeah,
was
that's
just like, you put all of these what ifs and what ifs, but buts and if, and just some things it really is just pull the trigger. Just
That's it.
absolutely start where you are with what you
Right, you
have.
are.
I
Mhm.
thought I was going to go to Martinique. That
Okay.
didn't work out.
Right.
Ended up in Bermuda. For the first trip to go so left
Mm-hmm.
and then to realize I could do hard things.
Do it.
I know how to pivot. If
Right.
something goes wrong, I could figure it out because guess
That's
what?
it.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
And so that representation as an adult opened so many doors for me. And so I feel like, you know, your girls being able to see you
Right.
traveling and to be able to see that you weren't afraid of
Mm-hmm.
traveling absolutely gave them that courage to, I mean, I can't speak for them, but as
Mm-hmm.
someone who knows what it feels like to look at someone close to you
Mm-hmm.
and see that it can be done.
Right.
I think that if more of us would realize that
Yes.
we don't have to necessarily intentionally be the change we want to see, that sometimes just the small act of doing what we feel is right for us can give
Exactly.
somebody else that boost to do something similar for them in whatever way that may be. It doesn't even have to be travel. It could
That's
be
right.
something as simple as, you know what? I know what it looks like to do something new. Maybe
Yes.
I should try
Right.
this. Maybe I will start that food blog, or maybe
Exactly.
I will, take those nail set classes and
Mm-hmm.
become an actual licensed.
Yep.
I think that's under cosmetology. I feel like it may be. Don't know for sure.
Esthetician, cosmet, one of them.
Yeah,
Right.
it's in one of them books.
I don't
So
know.
I think that a lot of times, if you need some motivation to figure
Yes.
out a why for you to do something that you are interested in doing, consider
Mm,
that it may inspire somebody that you care about to do something that
yes.
they care about.
Mm,
So if you need something bigger than you to
right.
give you a reason to travel, consider that there are people looking at you that you don't even know
Exactly.
are looking at you. And I
Right.
don't think that it has to only be kids. It could
No.
be other adults.
And I was going to say
These were
that.
other grown
Yeah.
women that were
People do it.
inspiring my grown
That's
ass. You know
wrong.
what I
Right.
mean? Like, it's like
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
just want to see yourself. You
Yes.
just want to see yourself
That's
in
right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the other question I was going to ask you is, was it easier, or do you think it was easier or not, to be the parent of a child traveling on their own because of
Mm-hmm.
your travel experience, or because of the fact that you wished that you had traveled sooner? Did that like ease any fears? Because I know that some parents, and I guess also you gotta know your kid. Like,
Right.
you could
Right.
have 10 kids and you
Right.
know which 3 are going to be fine, which
Right.
4 are going to need help, and you know what I mean, that kind of situation. So you got to
Right.
know your kids.
Yeah.
But
Right.
how do you think your experiences of travel, or your being intentional with them younger, how did that translate into being the parent that was able to kind of give your child that space to
Right.
explore on their own and to, take those steps when they felt like they were ready?
Right. And that goes back to, we didn't, like I said, we didn't travel far. We stayed kind of
Hmm.
local on local travel, but that opened up. Like, we would go down to the waterfront and take a ferry ride from Philly over to Camden, and we
Okay.
wouldn't have any purpose for going over there. We would just take the ferry ride. So it was always instilling that nature of like going someplace new, like you said.
Hmm.
We would. They used to hate it, but sometimes I would have no plan. It was like, we just going to get on this train. We're going to get on this. We're just going to see where it goes. And they're looking at me like, and like, mom,
Okay.
but felt safe enough because mom was there, whatever. And I think as that started to open up the adventure for them, it, and I would see how they would act in local spaces. So
Hmm.
it just made me know, like, you'll be fine. You'll
Yeah.
they go places with other family members, and I always get the report back of how well they did on their own, and what kind of, and they're very curious like me. So it was kind of a segue from local travel to kind of, okay. And I didn't want to stop them from being able to go just because I wasn't able to go for whatever reason.
Hmm.
So it's interesting you say that, because yes, I had my childhood travel, but that was kind of always with people doing things. So to let them go off with other people, I really don't know like where that boldness came from, or where that you know courage, if you will, comes from, to just say okay. But I didn't want to stop them. I think it was more about not restricting them and letting them know that, because I had watched so many other people do it, and I just didn't want, not like you said, not with travel, but period. I didn't want them to be restricted from
Yeah.
doing really anything. It was like, just because I haven't had that experience, I want you to have experiences that I haven't had. But at the same time, I didn't figure like, oh, I'm a certain age, those days are over for me. And it was like, no, I'm going to go and have some experiences too. So we kind of
Right.
influence each other. And I do get a lot of feedback from people my own age who they'll say, because I post everything. I post everything on my social pages, and they're watching, some of my friends, and you're always somewhere doing something, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's with somebody or by myself. And people have shared with me that encourages them, while they might not be adventurous to go zip lining like I did, or
Yeah.
get on a Vespa scooter or whatever, just to get out of their norm. It has encouraged, like you said, that representation matters, and seeing somebody do it at any age. They watch my young people do it, they watch my kids do it, they watch me do it, and knowing that, that encourages them, they could do it too. And that feels good when you see somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend who, she just talked about travel, but she never really, went anywhere, and that was fine. That was her comfort zone. And then one day I look up on social media, she's on a plane going to Dubai. And I was like, I called her. By the time I saw the picture, she was already home. I called her up and I was like, what's up? What's going on? She said, I finally just did it. Somebody invited me. I said, why not? And she told me that I had encouraged her, just kind of watching me kind of go, and had encouraged her when the opportunity came for her to just go on her own. So, like you said, representation matters, and just the inspiration of wanting to. I think you said this on one of your shows, talking about you learn so much traveling. You learn so much
Absolutely.
about yourself. You learn so much about the world. You dispel a lot of the stereotypes and
Mm-hmm.
misrepresentations that you might have had, or grew up with. You just learn so much, and that's what I want for my children specifically, but for anybody I encounter. I want to like travel so you can kind of get to know yourself better, and travel so you can get to know the world better, and understand that,
Yeah.
don't just live in that little bubble.
Yeah. I think
So
there's also this misconception that there's always more time.
that's true.
Unfortunately, that's not guaranteed for anybody.
Nope.
I've, seen coworkers, you retire and a
Exactly.
month later you drop
Mm-hmm.
dead. Or
Mm-hmm.
I've also had coworkers that died months before they retire.
Very
And you
true.
have
Yeah.
all of these plans
Just
for,
plans. Yep.
when this gets ready, or when I
Yep.
get this right, or as soon as I
And
get this
it's
kid, the last
sleepy
baby
and
out
all
the
the
house,
stuff.
and they get to college, and
Yep.
then because there's always going to be another goalpost. There's always going to be
Mhm.
another, measure of one more thing and one more
Mhm.
thing, and well, as soon as this, and well, I gotta.
So
Why?
true.
Why wait? Why?
Why wait?
Because you ain't do it before.
Right.
Like let the now of
Right.
things be the reason why you go, because you
Right.
never fucking know.
You
Like
don't
I
know.
was talking with one of my coworkers earlier today, and we were saying something about when our dogs die. I
Mm-hmm.
was talking about, I don't know if I know why you I understand
Mm-hmm.
why you shouldn't bury your pet in your backyard,
Right. Right. Right.
but I was like, well, I know my great grandma dog is in that ground. So
Right.
I'm thinking like maybe I'm gonna put Binksy there, but I'm just like, no, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna do that. I'm gonna do
Families.
this. And then I was talking to another one of my coworkers. No, and then he was just like, but you know what? We could go first. I said, you know the fuck what? You
It's,
absolutely right. I'm
it's
talking
true.
about, doing all these things for my dog
Yep.
for a sweet 16, and because I dropped the ball on the quinceanera. Sorry, baby. Um, but it's like I'm all of this planning, and I want to do this, and I'm
Yeah.
just I could go before the damn dog.
That's true. That's
By
true.
the grace of God, I'm only here
Yeah.
now. I done
Exactly.
been through plenty of shit that maybe I shouldn't have made it.
Exactly.
Anything could freaking happen.
Right.
So the point
Right.
is, it's like you could wait all your life
All your
and
life.
then realize, now I got arthritis.
You
Now I
can't do
got a
it.
bad back. Now I
Yep.
can't see out the left eye. Or
Yep.
now, and then what, if you will? I don't want to say what as if someone with mobility restrictions or any types of
Right.
disabilities still don't
Right.
enjoy
You can travel.
experiences and
Mm-hmm.
travel.
Sure.
But like if you've always dreamed of walking across the Great Wall of China.
Exactly.
And it comes to us, I'm going to wait until I retire and then I'm going to
Right.
walk across. And it's just like, well, by the time you retire,
You
first of
might
all, the way shit is set up now, we ain't retiring until 70 and better.
75 years old.
God bless. God bless those of y'all
Yes.
who are able to
Yes.
retire while you are still young and
Exactly.
healthy and, have the bodies that you are
Right.
used to doing all of the things with, right?
Exactly.
But and then if you retire, who's
Right.
to say something else in your life doesn't
Right.
all of a sudden now need you? Because
Yeah.
for those of us that are still blessed to have like our parents in our
Exactly.
lives as we age,
Mm-hmm.
I watched my mom bust her ass my whole life. She took
Right.
care of, me and my brother and my dad,
Right.
because my dad was like the third kid.
Right.
Hi, daddy. Like, bro, so hard. But you watch your parents parent, right, for your
Mhm.
entire lives.
Right.
And then my grandfather got sick. And
Mhm.
so my mom was there. She was
Taking
always
care.
there. She always take care of
Exactly.
my grandpa.
Exactly.
And, then my mom, I'm trying to think, I think my mom retired after my grandpa passed, or was it
Okay.
before? I don't remember which one of it's just like, I think she retired right before my grandpa died, but it's just like you retire
Right.
and now you spend every day taking care of your parents.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
it's just like, while you still might have had the wind, while you still
Mhm.
might have had like, that extra energy because you're used to getting up
Mhm.
every morning. She
Right.
still get up in the morning, every morning
Right.
at 6 a.m.
Right. Right.
God
Right.
bless. But it's like, while you still have the rotation of, being in work and you getting up and you moving and you
Right.
going and you're coming and going, enjoy your life while you
Do
have
it.
it.
Just do it.
Enjoy your life while you have it,
Yep.
because it is never a guarantee.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, travel gives you that opportunity to experience yourself in different ways and to learn so much more about life. So why not give yourself the opportunity to enjoy the life that you have
Exactly.
left? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? I personally know that I don't want to say I would hate to have like an incredible aha moment about something in my life
Mhm. Mhm.
past the point of when it would be something easy to explore or,
Right.
endeavor. Like, I would hate to say, you know what, maybe I should take up yoga.
Mhm.
Like, when my back really starts going, I don't have the best back, but like, I would hate to say I really want to try that shit when it
Yeah.
hurts even more. You know what I mean? So I
Right.
really would just encourage people to get out and explore while
Yes.
you have your desire to
Right
do it,
now.
whatever your mobility may look like, whatever,
Right.
because you never know that you might discover something that makes something that's not going right go better
No
someplace
better.
else. A lot of
Mhm.
times the
Yep.
answers you may be looking for or didn't
Right.
necessarily know there was an
Mhm.
answer to are just out there someplace
It's
else.
out there.
But you have to
Yeah.
give yourself that opportunity and that space to try
Yeah.
something new or to
I
be in the
agree.
space for that opportunity to actually meet you.
I agree.
And yeah, I think that there are, you know, so many adults. That's one of the things that I would say I probably heard not mostly, you hear it from everybody, but I
Right.
always, like, when I started traveling, what I hated so much was hearing like my mom say, "Oh, when I retire, I'll do this," or
Right.
"I'm gonna wait till, retire for this."
Exactly.
And it's, you hear so many people
There's so
say
many
it. And
people.
now that I'm at that age where you can kind of talk to your coworkers a little bit differently and have
Right.
different
Right.
conversations with them,
Right.
it's kind of like, no, I want y'all to go now.
Yeah.
Like,
Go.
you looking at me talking about, oh, where are you going now, young lady? Where are you
Yes.
going next? I don't know, Miss So and So, Miss D. Where are you going?
Exactly.
Where you going, Cleveland? What you going to check out? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's not a young person's thing. The world doesn't belong to the young. The world
That's
doesn't belong to the old. We all fucking
right.
here. And there's
Yes.
young and old people everywhere. So
Right.
if older people are making shit shake in Japan, you can
Yes.
make shit shake in Japan at whatever
Exactly.
age you are. You just got to get yourself
Exactly.
there.
Right. Right. I agree. I agree so much. And like I said, I didn't really, I guess, get really into my travel, really get an opportunity. It's not about opportunity. Opportunity was always there. I didn't take the opportunity until I was really in my 50s when I really started taking the opportunity to travel. I mean, I've basically been somewhere when I could, because that whole 2.5 years that we couldn't. But in the time that I could, I went and I found a way. And it always seems when I plan a trip, maybe the week of, I start getting sick. I get a toothache, get a little pain, little something. Something is trying to feel like it's trying to discourage me from going. But I've learned to just push through it, and realize like not let anything deter me and just go. And I am so glad on the other side that I didn't let something was trying to stop me go. I mean, I don't let there's always some kind of financial thing comes up, some bill out of nowhere comes up, and it's just like, I remember we were going on our honeymoon, me and my husband, and I'm in the airport trying to negotiate this bill that came out of nowhere. And I don't know where this money, because I'm going on vacation. So it's like everything was planned, everything was set. We go on this honeymoon, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I just get this email, and it's like, oh, I forgot about that. So I'm on the phone negotiating as they tell me to put my phone in airplane. I'm on the phone, but I'm not going to let anything stop me, because it always works out. In the end, it always works out. But I just feel like it's always some reason why you shouldn't do it, why you can't, like you say, oh, I'll do it then. I'll do it whenever. I'll do it when this happens, when that happens, when the stars align, whenever, whatever. And it's just like you look up and years have passed and you haven't done it. And then, like I said, now I want to go everywhere. Like I want to go to every continent. I want to go to so many different countries. I want to just get that passport, just use it up in as many places as I can go in the time I can use it. And I just won't I don't know. I just at the point now, you said it's very intentional, and I won't let anything stop me from going. And I'm going to go as long as I can go. Because like you said, when you get someplace, then you look over and there's somebody older than you, right next to you. And it's like you would get ready.
They're there, having a good time.
They're there. And you're just sitting home contemplating why you can and when. No, we're getting ready to do a cruise, me and my husband and my cousin and her husband, to Panama Canal. I don't know what's that. I mean, I know what the Panama Canal is, theoretically, but I don't know if it's something that I'm into or whatever. But it was just, it came up. It was like, okay, why not? And so we're going to do this 9-day cruise to the Panama Canal, Grand Cayman, Cartagena. I always think about you when I think about Cartagena. So we're going to have a stop in Cartagena.
Nice itinerary.
And Costa Rica. So those are the 4 stops. And I've never been to any of those places, and I'm so excited, and I've been doing my research. I've been going back and listening to some of your old podcasts and listening to, so I found about your Cartagena. And I'm like you.
I'll give you Marlon's number. Remind me. I'll give you Marlon's number.
I tried to reach out to
me. Sure he's...
Yeah, because we're there for like a certain amount of time. So I don't know if we can make it work, but I'll definitely appreciate it. But like the things that you talk about in your travel, you really inspire me. And you provide that representation, even though, somebody say, well, oh, she's young, she could do that. No, when I hear you do things, I'm like, I can do that. I can go there.
Yeah.
And it's so inspiring when I hear you talk about, like, I want to go to Joshua Tree. But after I heard you talk about, I just look at your pictures and I just say, that's on my list now. And your trip to Mexico, I did get an opportunity to go to a wedding in Mexico in September. And
nice. What part were y'all
in? We were in Cancun, right outside of Cancun. I can't remember the name of it. Puerto, don't get me wrong.
Puerto,
I know, right?
Carmen, Puerto, shit. Because I think we looked at staying someplace there.
And it was like, it wasn't my typical kind of vacation because I really like you. I don't really do like the all inclusives. I like to get into the locals, like to be in the mix of everything. But I had never been before. Opportunity came up. It was a wedding for a friend. So me and my daughter, we found a little cheap flight and found a booking for the same resort for half price than they were offering it. And we just got on the plane and went down there. So I just want to go. I just want to have a good time. Sometimes, I'll go by myself. I'll go with other people. I won't let other people not going stop me from going.
Right.
But yeah, that's. I'm excited about the cruise now, and I'm just always on a lookout for whether it's a local tour around my own city or
Yes.
a flight and a cruise or whatever in another country. It's all travel to me, and it's all
It
opportunity to do
absolutely
something I've
is.
never done. So
Even
yeah,
staying local, I
yeah,
personally think is travel related, because if I
definitely,
gotta find a way to get there,
exactly.
that is the nature of travel. I think that for
So,
so long, I made travel out to be something so big and
yeah,
elaborate
planned
that
out. Yeah,
I also kind of, I wouldn't say discredited, but probably discredited some excursions and trips
yes,
and
yeah,
experiences as if they were just some little thing, or it was
right.
like, no, you traveled, you did a little something.
You
And
did
I
that,
think that the same experiences sometimes that we get when we go to Mexico or
right,
Colombia or to, the Chinas of the world, it's like
right.
you could absolutely do that an hour from your
From your
house.
own, yes,
A lot of the time we are looking for that stepping outside of the familiar,
right,
and the unfamiliar also exists
right.
locally. Go to a
Okay.
new
Yeah.
restaurant, go to a new
Museums and your
like
yeah,
a exactly.
yeah,
Look, the stuff that people are coming to your city to do,
your
tap
city,
into it. Because that's
exactly.
another thing that I've mentioned before. It's just like, I don't even think I'm a great host.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many things about New York that I know that it's like I live here.
Right.
So when somebody says, "Oh, well, what you do?" Girl, I go to work. What do you do at home? Okay? Like I go to work. That's it.
Right,
Like
right,
and
right,
then
right.
it's just like, no, you do things,
A
right?
lot,
But you
right.
do life things, but
Yes.
try to find, where are
Mhm.
your top 3 restaurants in your neighborhood?
Exactly,
If somebody
exactly.
were coming to your city, like where would you take them? Where are
Mhm.
places that are really nice to walk? Where are
Right,
places that
right.
are really nice to have a picnic?
Yes,
Explore your own city,
right.
and that same kind of, oh, this is nice. Ooh, just, oh, I needed that. Or just needed a
Yeah,
little break or a little kind of separation
yep,
from the stress of this.
exactly.
This cousin's always complaining about this. My
Mhm.
grandma asking for this.
Right,
Whatever it is, you can get that experience that you're looking to get from travel
right.
from someplace local. And if you
Someplace
don't want to
local.
stay in your own city, try
Right,
going to the next state over.
right,
Try
right
going
over.
to
Yep.
wherever, like shout out to Kenya and Croatia,
Mhm.
on the charts there. I don't know what y'all regions
Mhm.
are called, but go to the next one and
Exactly.
consider that it don't have to necessarily be, go on to like, I don't know if everybody has Amtrak, but
Mhm.
if you have
Yes.
like a train system
Yep.
or a bus system, if you want to keep it cute and economical,
Yes.
what's an hour away?
That's
What's
it.
an hour away that you ain't
Right.
been to before? Check it
Exactly.
out. Stay
Yep.
overnight, or just
Exactly.
go for
Like
another,
get up
like,
early and
you're
go
in
all
Philly. Philly
right.
is a really bomb road trip. We were looking to go
Yeah.
to Janelle Monáe. Best
Okay.
concert I went to all
Mhm.
fucking year.
Yeah.
And we were looking into making a trip of it. Like, all right, well,
Mhm.
let's see where we can go see her, where we will have a good time. So, of course,
Right.
Montreal was top of the list, but then
Mhm.
those
Mhm.
sold out. Then we
Okay.
were looking at, all right, well, my cousins are in DC, so let's put
Mhm.
DC on the list. They
Mhm.
had like standing room only, and I
Okay.
don't do standing room. I am
Yeah. No.
not a fan. Um, run me a seat, I will pay extra.
Exactly.
What else would we look at? Toronto.
Mhm.
I don't hate Toronto, but it's not
Right.
Montreal. But we
Right.
thought about going there.
Mhm.
And then we were looking at Philly, and we were kind of like, do we want to go to this venue? Like, if we
Mhm.
go, are we going to stay overnight? And then it's just
Right.
like, how does it feel to stay overnight when we an hour and a half away? Do
Right.
you really want to stay overnight, or do we would just want to, like,
Just like
what are we
that.
doing?
Right.
You can absolutely travel for a basketball game, for a
Mhm.
sports game. If you
Yep.
know that your team is playing someplace local, go
Right.
see the game over there.
Right. And it's usually
It don't,
cheaper.
hello,
It's
right?
usually
Because they not even your team,
right.
So it's just like you could get the seats in the back. Just make an event of
Exactly.
it. I think sometimes
Yes.
making an event
I
of
love
some of
that.
the little things of life
Yes.
kind of give you that little refresh,
Right.
or the little pick me up
Right.
sometimes, that the world is falling apart around us. It is
Right.
always falling apart
Right.
around us.
There's always
We
something
got to
on
do
fire.
our
Yep.
own job of, like,
Yes.
checking in with ourselves and making sure
Yeah,
that we could kind of make it through if the world gonna make it through.
exactly.
We gotta
You got
be
to
here.
find your own joy. You got to make your own
God
joy.
willing.
Find your own
That's it.
joy, and that's what we'll get up and just go down, and the waterfront is literally a few blocks away. You know,
Beautiful.
we'll either walk down there or go to like a park. You get inside of a park, and sometimes in most cities there's a national park, like you said, within an hour.
Yeah.
Once you get inside that national park, and a lot of times they're free or really inexpensive. Once you get inside, you forget all about what's outside.
You
So I'm
do. You
always,
forget you even home.
you
You
forget.
forget where you at.
Yeah,
Because it's not even you can get the experience of being in the city and then you can get the
exactly,
experience of being outside in
exactly,
nature. So I
exactly.
have one last question I wanted to
Okay.
ask you. In terms of your travel planning and
Mhm.
finding information, like
Yes.
where do you find your information? Because I'm curious as to if um, different demographics
Hmm.
find information in different spaces
Okay.
and
Okay.
what um like for example, right? So I don't what was I listening to? The Friend Zone,
Hmm.
one of my favorite podcasts, and I am doing a catch up. Like I had fallen into like a crime junkie kind of
Okay.
true crime hole, and that's all I
Hmm.
was listening to
Right.
for like
Right.
a
Right.
month. So
Yeah.
I missed a bunch of episodes. So I'm catching up on Friend Zone, and there
Hmm.
was an episode Asante did about scamming.
Okay.
So many scams, and one of the sentiments that the hosts had expressed was really being worried about like our parents or
Okay.
our elders. A lot of us don't necessarily live close or in the same city or in the same states as our parents, and a lot of times you realize that they may not trust people,
Hmm.
and they may maybe put a little more trust in technology or
Right.
vice versa. They
Right.
may
Right.
be really weary of trusting technology because in some cases it's much newer.
Right.
So I'm curious as to, is there like a generational divide in how we find our information or the places that we go to get our information, right? Because I'm also realizing Google ain't the same Google that it was
No.
when I started Googling.
No. No.
And I absolutely found an article that, now I wanted to say a word that's not actually a word, like validated or something.
Make
I
it
don't
up.
know where the
Right.
fuck I was going with it, but that it gave the sentiment is like it made me feel better about it. It validified. That's where it was. Woo! Damn, I was reaching. It validified for me
Yeah.
that no, something's up.
Hmm.
Google has changed like their algorithm or they
Yeah.
do something so you could type in a search and it's giving you
Right.
something for free.
Something
So
different.
I thought I was fucking stupid. I
Hmm.
thought that it's just like, oh, I'm just not using Google appropriately,
Right. Right.
or it's just my Google
Yeah.
whatever. So there are so many different ways to find information. There are so
Yes.
many different ways to kind of screen your
Right.
information and
Right.
the lens, if you will, of how
Right.
you get your information. I'm
Right.
curious as to where you find, um, your not just like inspiration, but like the
Right.
answers when you're looking for a question or when you're looking
Right.
up and researching a destination. Like, what are
Right.
the places that you necessarily point your attention towards?
Well, I usually I love to read, so that's kind of where it starts. A lot of times, that kind of becomes my inspiration, reading, and just let my imagination flow to like these different places and experiences. That's kind of where it starts. But once I decide on a place, or even like a region or whatever, I really like Facebook. I joined a
Okay.
Facebook group from that
Ooh.
place. A lot of times, you with the chats and the comments, you just can learn so much from either people who visit that place a lot or people who live in that space. And
Hmm.
especially when you're looking for certain kind of experiences like Black history or certain kind of specific interests, you can ask those questions and usually get a lot of answers from that. I love YouTube. I'm a YouTube junkie. I will sit and watch YouTube videos about a destination. One of the reasons how I started listening to you is just finding representation about places that I hadn't been, because a lot of people, I don't know, they just didn't. when you go on YouTube, they don't look like us a lot of times. A lot of times,
No.
especially when you look at national parks and museums and places like that, more historic areas. When I was doing research for the European trip, it was almost impossible to find someone who some representation, somebody who would experience the way that I was hoping to experience it. That's one of the reasons why I do want to. I don't know how I want to do it yet, but I want to get involved in showing people that people like you do these things. Black people ski, Black people do national parks, Black people do water sports, whatever it is. I want people to see that it's not, we're out there. We're out there. We're doing stuff. But so I'm a YouTube person. I go and do a lot of research there, and then I will, do Google a little bit. But like you said, I'm finding more and more that you get in these rabbit holes. It's really hard to pinpoint what you're looking for. So with that being said, I was talking to my oldest daughter, and she introduced me recently to Chat GPT. So that's my thing now. I love Chat GPT, AI generated stuff like that. I go in and I just type whatever questions in my head. I was looking for the cruise that we're going on. I'm looking for Afro-centric experiences in the different ports. I don't just want to do the touristy thing. So I just asked, what type of Afrocentric experiences can I do in this port, that port? And AI it'll just run it down. Like you wait 30 seconds and it just runs it all down and just shares with you specifically based on the question. You can just keep going and going and going, get as deep into it as you want to go. I found out in Costa Rica, we're going to a port called Limon, and Limon is the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. So that's not.
Sadie's out there. Travel with Sadie.
I saw that.
Send you her information.
Please send me that. And I think I don't know, somebody did just see that. And so send me that information. But but when I went in Chat GPT, I just typed what kind of Afrocentric experiences can you do in Limon. The cruise ship, their excursions are going to be geared mostly not to everybody, kind of the general population and the touristy kind of crowd that's not looking for the same experiences I'm looking for. And when I put in Chat GPT, they told me about there's a statue of a Black Christ at this Catholic church, in the hood, and they tell you how to get there. Say there's safe ways to get there. So when you go, you've done your research, but you've done a little deeper than just the typical stuff that people are going to do. I might not do everything on that list, but now I have a list. But I want to find out where's the best jerk chicken in Grand Cayman. You type that in Chat GPT and it'll run you down a whole list of restaurants. And then you can kind of go on whatever and do your reviews and kind of see what the vibe is. Look at some pictures, go on social media. I always just follow different people on Instagram. Whatever restaurant I see, I follow it so I can start to get a feel as I'm leading up to the trip. Are they having any kind of special events, any special days, any discounts coming up, any deals are coming up while I'm going to be there, any music festivals or special, I love live music. Are they having any live music events? So that's kind of been my new tool. My newest tool is Chat GPT and AI doing things like that. And I know there's a lot of controversy around it, but for travel, that's been where I've gotten really precise answers to the questions I have.
I don't know why I never thought of that.
My daughter showed me.
Thank you to your baby. Thank you, little Miss Boyd. Wow. That is absolutely something I'm going to see. I've been age aside, I am a little weary about new tech sometimes. But I feel I get very easily frustrated if I'm not good at something right away.
Right.
So unfortunately, I tend to kind of stick to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to.
That's it. Right.
And in certain little realms and in certain respects, I know that I can branch out a bit more, right? Like
Exactly.
I can be very adventurous in some
Mhm.
areas, and then in others, absolutely not. And I think
Yeah.
that that is one that I need to dip a toe in the water
Yeah.
and see how it could be
I would say try
so
it.
much
Try it.
more, beneficial and useful.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. Put me
Yeah.
onto something new. Thank you.
You're
So,
welcome.
Miss Boyd, where can the people find you? You have been such an incredible guest. It's been such a pleasure to
Thank
talk with
you.
you.
Thank you.
Where can the people find you and follow your travels and see what you are up to and where you have adventured to next?
Because so I was posting a lot on my personal page on Instagram, and then we love to travel. It's like when you travel, you take us with you. So I created a page called Lemon Drop Travel on Instagram, and I post not just my own travel, but I share different travel related information and things there so that people can see. I do a lot of local stuff. I'll show you Philly and New York are like two of my big places that I post on there. So because my daughter's in New York and I know it's literally like a hour and a half bus ride away, I will hop on some kind of bus, and because I don't like to drive in New York, I will hop on some kind of bus and go from Philly to New York and be able to experience that, like that whole getaway or getaway weekends or whatever. And so if you go on my page, you'll see a lot of local travel. You'll see a lot of um, not not completely, not exclusively, but I do a lot of black owned and black
Hmm.
focused stuff because I think it's so important for people to know that we're everywhere and we're doing everything.
Absolutely.
Um, and I have connected one of the people that you have, well, a couple people, but one person in particular, Franny the Traveler. I found
Yes.
her on
Hi,
your
Franny.
show. Hey, Brandy. And we've been communicating back and forth on social media. I feel like I know her. I can't wait to one day go and spend, some time with her in New York. I just think she is an amazing person. I
That's so
buy,
incredible.
I bought a book because of
Oh,
you.
great.
I use
Yay.
to plan my different travels when I go different places. I always check her book and see what's where. And even in my own city, she's opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. But yeah, Lemon Drop Travel is what it's called. And I picked that name because I wanted to squeeze. When I travel, I like to squeeze every drop out of a place
I
because
hear
I know
that.
I'm going back.
Right.
So, the plan is I hope maybe one day to come back, but if I don't, I'm going to squeeze as much out of it as I can while I'm there.
I love that. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank
sharing
you
with us,
so
Miss Boyd.
much.
I'm gonna absolutely have your Instagram in the description box for the good people,
Thank you.
and let this conversation be the inspiration,
Yes.
the visibility. If you don't
Mhm.
see yourself out traveling, we out here, and you
Yeah.
could be out here too. All
Yes.
right, y'all. It's been real.
Thank you. Bye
See
bye.
you next week. Bye, y'all.